It's lunchtime, I suppose, and very difficult to speak.
Sir, this is not a lunch time, sir. 2 o'clock, sir.
No, I'm not going to take that long. I presume that Sri Mallapalli Lakshmaya is presiding over this conference, and Professor Thoraji, Kaki Madharao garu, Ramchandramurti garu, మిత్రులు ప్రొఫెసర్ కోదన్ రామ్ గారు, my friend Rajshekar Hundru, Professor Limbadri, and I find a distinguished lady, Soren, from my fraternity. She is a practicing advocate. And Mr. Reddy, the local councillor who represents all of us here, a galaxy of distinguished personalities. And equally distinguished personalities in the audience. I must express my gratitude to Sri Lakshmaya and Center for Dalit Studies for giving me this opportunity to participate in this meeting. You will forgive me for taking slightly a different route, for ignoring for the present the tagline, assessing the achievements in socio-economic justice. That would be a separate topic. There will be many occasions to speak about in CDS. I propose to deal with one or two recent developments and their impact on the Constitution of India as we understand. And guilty men for my deviation were responsible is Professor Kodan Ram and Sri Ramchandramurti. I was exchanging notes with them to frame my idea. And it is they who are responsible for my deviation. Otherwise, that is my favorite topic, socio-economic justice under the Constitution of India. To the extent possible, I would not repeat what Professor Thoraji and Professor Kodan Ram said. I don't know, all of you have, I suppose, read it, including the galaxy of distinguished guests sitting here. A lecture delivered by none other than the most powerful person after the Prime Minister of India, Honorable Home Minister of this country. While inaugurating the Hindu Spiritual and Service Fair 2025, organized by RSS affiliate. Its name is Hindu Spiritual and Service Foundation. We don't know how many such foundations we have. The Honorable Home Minister said, I quote exactly what he has said. Several works of our ideology, which no one dared to even touch in the last 7 decades since independence. This was a lecture delivered on the eve of 20th Republic Day. Of course, there is no mention of Republic Day, no mention of Constitution, no mention of Baba Saheb, no mention of Gandhi, no mention of any freedom fighters. It's a separate matter. And today, India is standing before the world with pride. And he continued, Article 370 has been abrogated in Kashmir. Ram Lalla's exile. We never knew that Ram could be in exile. Is over after 550 years. And a grand Ram temple has been constructed in Ayodhya. Kashi Vishwanath corridor has been made. Somnath temple is being made of gold. Triple talaq is stopped. And the uniform civil code is also in place. This is in continuation of what the head of their organization, Sir Sanchalak, said that SWA is missing. What we got on 15th August 1947 is not the independence. It is 21st January 2024, consecration of the idol of Ram. So what does it mean? Has it anything to do with the ideology of the Constitution? We have a different notion of Constitution and its scope. We always thought it is a revolutionary document, assuring social, political, economic revolution. What is the understanding of such of those who believe in this quote unquote our ideology? What is that our ideology has to do with the Constitution? Constitution is not something which has fallen from the sky. It's not given to us by somebody. It is we the people and given it to ourselves. Of course, our founding fathers and mothers, founding mothers, about whom we don't speak, were responsible for shaping that document, in which Baba Saheb played a predominant role, and that's how we consider him as architect of the Constitution and rather father of the Constitution. If Gandhiji was the father of nation, Baba Saheb was father of Indian Constitution. Do they have any understanding of the pre-constitutional political system do they have any understanding? The first war of independence in 1857, and of course this is not my word, the first war of independence has been used by the new icon. I don't have to name them. And 1857 was followed by the Government of India Act 1858, where the British Empire has taken over the complete control of the territory of India from East India Company. Then thereafter you have the, I will not go into the details and salient features of the 1858 Act, because it was the beginning where the Britishers have realized it's no more possible without involving the natives, quote unquote, Indians in the administration. Then this was followed by the Indian Councils Act 1861-1892, further improvement of providing some representation, though nominated by the British, into decision-making processes. Then this was followed by Morley-Minto Reform and the Indian Councils Act 1909. This was known by the names of then Secretary of State for India Lord Morley and Viceroy Lord Minto, which ultimately has taken the shape of Indian Councils Act 1909. It is the first time they thought about the provincial legislative councils to be more advanced and what some more representation. Because after 1857, the British seem to have realized that it is no more possible to administer in the same fashion as the East India Company was administering the territories which it has occupied directly or indirectly. But one dangerous thing that has crept in 1909, for the first time, separate representation of the Muslim community was thought of, and the Britishers have thus sowed the seeds of separatism that eventually led to the partition of India. They were not talking of separate representation to the weaker sections, Dalits, but they were talking about separate representation to the Muslims and Muslims alone. Then came the Government of India Act 1912-1915. They have undone the partition of Bengal and created new provinces in Bihar and Orissa, and also made Assam a new Chief Commissioner's province. Then came the Montague-Chelmsford Report, which led to the enactment of Government of India Act 1909. One thing we may have to note here, that by the time these reforms were contemplated, the Indian National Congress was established in 1885, was so long under the control of moderates become more active during the First World War and started the campaign of self-government, what we call home rule. Therefore, some more reforms were announced that led to the entry of Baba Saheb in 1919. Southborough Committee itself is the product of Montague-Chelmsford reforms. And the representation made by Baba Saheb before the Southborough Committee was universal adult suffrage, with no qualifications prescribed to participate in the governance. It was just not what you call universal adult suffrage. So what? That was the seed that was sown for demanding and guaranteeing the right to equality. Some of us who have our own ideology, which was referring to earlier, they did not find any SWA, SWA. In these steps, ultimately leading to the independence and the enactment of the Constitution of India. I do not bother you about the details and how the developments have taken place, but they have realized the progressive realization of a responsible government in British India as an integral part of empire was in fact resided in in the Government of India Act 1919. Then they have slowly started relaxation of central control over the provinces. The Indian legislature made somewhat little more representative under that act. There were several shortcomings about which I do not deal with it. Then comes the Simon Commission and the Communal Award. This was consequent to the dislocation caused by non-cooperation movement, and that led the British government in 1927 to appoint a statutory commission as envisaged by the Government of India Act 1919 itself. Of course, except Baba Saheb, everybody else boycotted that Simon Commission. Baba Saheb appeared and made the same plea for the universal adult suffrage, because that was his understanding of equality. That was his understanding of inclusive politics, inclusive democratic process. Sometimes we don't understand, at least a person like me don't understand. It has taken a lot of time. The significance of universal adult suffrage. Then this was led to roundtable conference where the Simon Commission was discussed. again boycotted by others, attended by Baba Saheb. Then the same plea of universal adult suffrage, apart from a representation to the depressed classes, quote unquote. He did not use the word Dalits or depressed classes. Then a federal scheme was contemplated. Then this was followed by Government of India Act 1935, from which we have heavily borrowed for framing our constitution. And before that, I must make a mention that for the first time under 1935 Act, the federal court, unified judiciary, was thought of and a provision has been made. To the extent possible, the independent judiciary, about which I am always tempted to speak with a reference to the present situation, but I restrain myself, and we will talk about it some other time. Then Cripps mission, the plan was announced on 16th May 1946, and ultimately the Simla conference that has led to the Indian Independence Act 1947. All of you are aware, and including the distinguished guests sitting on the dais. The bill which was introduced in Parliament, British Parliament, on July 4th, was enacted with the royal assent on July 18th, 1947. It was to have effect from August 15th, 1947, what they call appointed day. The bill was introduced on July 4th, July 18th, discussion, enactment, royal assent. Such was the pressure from the people of India, which Professor Kodanram was speaking about. As long as people are alert, and as long as the people, what you call, play the role of concerned citizens, Constitution is safe. I'll come to that aspect a little bit later. I have to say something about it, and I don't know, it is already 1:30. Maybe another 5-10 minutes, Mr. Lakshmi. Then many of us immediately do not recollect. The Constituent Assembly, which had first sat on 9th December 1946, that is even before the formation of the India Independence Act, because the Cripps mission, followed by Mountbatten Plan, where they have decided that one Constituent Assembly is not going to deliver the goods, they should have two Constituent Assemblies. It was assembled on 9th December 46, reassembled after the midnight of 14th August 1947. That is the formation of the Constituent Assembly. It's not possible to go into the process of constitution making. But the effect of Indian Independence Act 1947 was abolition of sovereignty and the responsibility of the British Parliament. The Crown no longer the source of authority. But even before that, 25 years before that, Gandhi said, Swaraj will not be a free gift of the British Parliament. It will be a declaration of India's full self-expression. That it will be expressed through an act of Parliament is true, but it will be merely a courteous ratification of the declared wish of the people of India, even as it was in the case of Union of South Africa. Then I'll come to the constitution making in one or two sentences. The role played by Baba Saheb. The stress which he has undergone consumed him, and he used to fall very often sick, leading to his untimely death. People do not realize about it. How he championed each article, how he dealt with hundreds of opinions within the Constituent Assembly, all without any malice, with all good intentions, but sometimes without realizing the consequences of what they were pleading and what Baba Saheb advised by his intervention. One, of course, is November 48. Two last lectures are too well known, about which I don't make a mention. But one criticism was, you have made, Dr. Ambedkar, you have made it too long a constitution, providing too many details. Somebody said you have made a very short constitution without laying any roadmap for day-to-day administration of the country. Somebody said you have made it too flexible and amenable to amendments. Somebody said you have made it too rigid. Answering all this, Baba Saheb made a classic statement. Whatever you may write, whatever you may incorporate, whatever may you articulate in the Constitution, as long as it in the hands of the right people, as long as it is operated by the people who believe in the idea of Constitution, it is safe. If it fails, not because any infirmity is in the Constitution, the expression used, because the man is wild. Man includes women also. We had that experience. And one very often not quoted, often not noticed, Baba Saheb said, One likes to ask whether there can be anything new in a constitution framed at this hour in the history of the world. He was posing question to himself, answering in the debate. More than 100 years have rolled when the first written constitution was drafted. Perhaps he was referring to the United States Constitution. It has been followed by many other countries reducing their constitution to writing. Given these facts, all constitutions in their main provisions must look similar. The only new things, if there be any, in a constitution framed so late in the day are the variations made to remove the faults and to accommodate it to the needs of the country. That is how the Constitution has emerged. So, when these people, very respectable, distinguished in their own right, when they speak about our ideology, which remained unimplemented for 75 years, what is that ideology they are speaking about? Are they aware of this constitutional and political developments leading to the enactment of the Constitution? I was reading with a lot of interest an article recently published by a leading social scientist, Suhas Parsikar. All of you, I think those who are sitting here may have read it. I don't know others. He said in between two Indian states, one Indian state which is represented by the Constitution, and another state which is represented by, quote unquote, our ideology. He straight away speaks. It's not my speech, I'm only quoting him. Don't attribute it to me. Recently, the RSS chief underlined his view that India got its true independence only on the Ram temple at Ayodhya was consecrated. With the clout that he enjoys not only among the RSS cadres but also among many outsiders who have discovered virtue in paying obeisance to the organization and chief, this edict about the formation of a true Indian state on January 22nd last year will undoubtedly be taken seriously in many quarters. Juxtaposed with that, this week also witnesses commemoration of the day on which Indian Republic was formed in 1950. Then ultimately says, it's a lengthy article. Is this a case of duality of our collective personality? Why is there no fight back from the constitutional republic? This one issue just now was told to us by Professor Kodandra. Why is the constitutional state not repudiated squarely? That means why the other instruments of constitution are not responding to this dilemma. It may include the parliament. It may include my fraternity. Executive, we don't have to talk about it because it's they say who say this is our ideology. The question alerts us to the complex moment our national life currently experiences. We live in the midst of two state systems. It's frightening to read and realize the consequences. The new one is long born and roams aggressively. The old one is not declared dead yet. This is the danger. The new one is the Republic, Indian Republic. The old one is, it is 100-year-old. I don't have to speak about it. So would the Constitution survive by itself? We being silent spectators, we live under certain notions that चलो Constitution तो है, देखते हैं क्या होता. Again Baba Sahib said, you don't have to amend the Constitution to break it. You can wreck it by your administrative measures. One seasoned administrator is sitting here. I don't know whether he is nodding his head in agreement or differing with it. I don't know. Another seasoned administrator is sitting. How the administration can wreck the Constitution without amending the Constitution. This is said in 1950. I don't think I will take 1 hour 59 minutes to speak on the Constitution. All of you know who took that 1 hour 59 minutes to speak on the Constitution. Lincoln's second inaugural was 11 minutes. Trump's inaugural was 59 minutes. His second inaugural. Nowadays we are all tuned to gear up to hear at least 1.5 hour lecture. With all sorts of rhetorical flourishes. When somebody claps, I asked him, why are you clapping? Oh, he spoke very well, sir. What did he speak? ఏమో సార్ తెలియదు. అంటే మోహ భాష. That rhetoric you are carried away and you never care to look into the substance and the implications and the dangers inbuilt into such lectures. I'll briefly touch upon, the habit of making notes. Kodanram yesterday left me at about 7:30, making me to write whatever I could speak with you, sitting up to 1 a.m. in the night. The framers of our Constitution were deeply mindful of the vulnerabilities of a new and untried political order. That's why I began with that. We are into that untried political order. an experiment that greatly depended on the confidence of the citizenry to succeed. So they did their best to argue from the start that their handiwork was not wholly new, but based on time tested ideas rooted in the soil of antiquity. That's why I was referring from 1857 independence struggle and mutiny, whatever you call it. The founding generations and many that followed it tried to literally cement a sense of perpetuity to the enterprise. Today we have come to assume the permanence of our political institutions, and that assumption creates alarming vulnerabilities in two principal forms. The first is casual indifference, a political order that appears to many as a permanent, for better or worse, seems beyond their personal ability to do damage. To some extent, the freedom of indifference is a great virtue of liberal democracies, where citizens can choose to devote their days to the private affairs of home and market, blissfully unmindful of politics. अरे छोड़ो भाई, ये अपनी बात की बस नहीं, ये politics and discipline. Politics is nothing but part of democratic process. How can we be indifferent to it? And our indifference has taken us to this stage. But this liberty becomes dangerous when citizens tune completely out of public affairs, but for an occasional visit to the polling booth. That would lead to electionocracy. From democracy, you will degenerate it into electionocracy. Again, based in part on the assumption that their democratic inheritance is set in stone. As if it is carved in stone. You go to the polling booth, you exercise your vote. I'm not going into the complexities of voting and results, the role played by the election commissions. It's not necessary to go into that. Yet anyone engaged in political demolition without regard to the fragility of the enterprise is at risk of taking down a load-bearing wall. Load-bearing wall is the Constitution. Long before, this is one of my favorite lecture, therefore I will quote one or two sentences from that and take your leave. I know I am taxing you, but I wish I could have more time to tax you further. Long before he became the greatest reformer in American history, Lincoln delivered a major address to the Young Men's Lyceum in Springfield, Illinois, which is titled The Perpetuation of Our Political Institutions. Lincoln had grown worried that the nation of his youth had changed. We are all worried about that now, what we see. Look at the audience. Where do we find them? We are speaking amongst ourselves. He feared the mutual affection of his countrymen, which had once tied them together in common cause, had disappeared, leaving anger and discontent. Passion has helped us. Lincoln observed of the founding period, but can do so no more. It will be in future be our enemy. What is that would be our enemy? The passion, which you and I witness every day. That is the stage where we have reached now. In response, Lincoln has counseled reason, quote unquote, cold, calculating, unimpassioned reason. That means a lecture or a speech or a talk dehards the rhetorical flourishes. I don't refer to any individual, left all of you, it is left all up to each one of you to understand. But the ultimate aim, Lincoln said, was to secure a reverence for the Constitution and the laws. That reverence was the predicate for all the changes he later wrought in America. So the first step away which we have to take from the dangers of that passion and towards the reasoned reverence and simple recognition that perpetuation of our constitutional institutions is not assured, and that our constitutional order has been more fragile than we have recently been led to understand and believe. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your forbearance. Now it is over to my fellow citizens of India, that is Bharat. Thank you very much.